Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for spending Friday evening with us. Very honored to be up here, and that was a wonderful talk you gave there. The importance of the arts, I think, is really understated in Hong Kong, and something that I'm personally trying to change as well, so thank you again. So my talk is a little bit about what I do. It's very image heavy, to make it easy on you tonight. Really, it's about passion and combining passion with purpose. Really, to use your creative inner talents and your passions to affect change. And also, in our case, towards the end, we'll talk a little bit about tech and how that can be applied to the area of conservation. As you mentioned, right, so I used to be a magazine editor, promoting luxury lifestyle, promoting unchecked consumerism. Wrong, right? We don't need more luxury lifestyle. We don't need more billionaires. We need smart people coming up with great ideas to make our cities live more sustainably and greener and enhance communities, not only in the cities, but also out there in the world. I used to be, well, I still am a TV host, and I've made films for independently, but also for National Geographic. So I tell stories about successful people, but also about people or animals who don't have the voice to speak up for themselves. Unfortunately, Ray here, she died of cancer, but she was an incredible influence in my life. She really spoke out for young people living with cancer in the city, and I learned a lot from her. So as you mentioned, I'm also the CEO of Authentic Studio. We really specialize in branded content, but also really pushing out augmented reality and virtual reality. What she didn't mention was I'm also the CEO and founder of Project Sea Change. Sea Change, next please, is my non-profit organization, and we use storytelling to raise consciousness, to change people's habits of consumerism and raise money for charity in the process. So we see here the nice little graphic. Consumerism is what we're trying to target, how we consume. We need to consume more responsibly. The future of retail, the future of consumerism, I believe the younger generation want to buy products which have been made ethically, want to live more sustainably, because perhaps the previous generation have kind of screwed things up for us. So, your fault. No. The difference now between the previous generation and our generation is that we know what the issues are. So we're going to talk a little bit about the issues. And the quote there says it all. I think the greatest threat to our planet is this idea that someone out there is going to save us. Someone out there is going to invent something that's going to clean up all the plastic in the oceans. There are organizations doing terrific work. There are charities doing terrific work. And they're doing lots beyond what we can see. However, they're not doing enough. And it may be too little too late. So I'm really trying to sort of motivate you to go out and do your own social enterprise or create your own environmental technology and really tap into that unknown capacity to do so. Who's bored? Okay, good. So I set up Project Sea Change, which to me was a lot of work, but it's also been a lot of fun because I've gone and met incredible people. I've gone to the top of Kilimanjaro with some celebrities, climbed 6,000 meters to raise awareness about the depleting glaciers. This glacier here, the Northern Glacier, it's receded about 500 meters in the last few years. Within a few decades, it will be gone. It's been there for thousands of years. So this is a very visible signal about man-made climate change and how quickly we're changing the Earth's composition. Climate change, as you know, is a serious issue. Who here believes in climate change? You better put your hand up now. No Donald Trumps in here. But climate change is an ever-present threat. The UN has just revised its estimates, saying that actually we're going to hit 3 degrees centigrade rise in temperatures by the end of the centigrade. The Paris Climate Treaty was to agree not to go above 2 degrees centigrade. So we're already saying that we're not going to make that target. And the scientists are just astounded by how fast things are deteriorating. We've gone over the 400 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. What that means for us simply is that cities from Shanghai to Miami will be flooded from rising sea levels, and also the increased CO2 in the oxygen is going to acidify the oceans, thereby really affecting marine life in the oceans. Many other things as well, but we only have 17 minutes, so I'll carry on swiftly. I've also done a project on biodiesel. I actually converted waste cooking oil into fuel, which I then drove from Cambodia to Singapore, and here I'm actually shoveling shit. Can I say that on a TEDx? I'm shoveling shit, because we use that pig manure to create gas, which can then power transit, like biogas, buses and transportation, things like that. But what really focused my attention as a photographer and as a journalist was the illegal wildlife trade. And here you can see a rhino, a mother rhino who was 14 months pregnant. She'd had her head blown off with a big caliber bullet for her horn. And I can't show you the photo because the photo of the fetus hanging out the other side was just so horrendous I nearly vomited. So this is what got me going on the illegal wildlife trade. Now why is it relevant to us here in Hong Kong? Hong Kong is one of the largest shipment hubs for the illegal wildlife trade. All this illegal trade that's going into Asia, it comes through Hong Kong first in containers. So we need to pressure the government to do more to monitor that trade. But also people are still consuming rhino horn because they believe that rhino horn can cure diseases, can cure man-made ailments. It's the same thing as your fingernail, it's just keratin, right? So we have to get the message out to everyone that rhino horn really has no medicinal value and therefore should not be worth more than gold in its weight. It's ridiculous that this is still going on. At the rate of current extermination of rhinos in Africa, they'll go extinct in 15 years in some areas. It's pretty stark reading. The same is happening for elephants. This is pretty gruesome. When they dart an elephant, they don't necessarily kill it because they don't want to waste a bullet. They go up with a chainsaw or an axe and hack off the front of its face. And sometimes the elephant survives that, wakes up, and of course is walking around without a nose, without a trunk. So I'm sorry to shock you, but I want to show you what's going on there. Within the space of this talk, an elephant would have been killed in Africa to fuel the ivory trade in Asia. More needs to be done. And just to tell you some statistics there were 1 million elephants at the beginning of the last century. There are now only 350,000. The rate of disappearance is shocking, and it's still shocking. We've wiped out 50% of all the wildlife on the planet in the last 40 years. We're basically wiping out all non-human species because of our recklessness. So why should we... Okay, fine. I mean, we need to eat, you might think, but why do people need to kill elephants for what is essentially an ornament, a luxury ornament? And if we can't stop these animals from going, we're not going to stop the species that do matter to our survival from disappearing. That's actually a lion that's been killed as a retaliatory attack from a tribe. Lions come into tribes, attack the cattle, and then the tribesmen, well, they used to go and kill the lion. That's now changing. Tribesmen are now being paid to preserve and protect the lions, and it's actually working very well, but it's a pretty shocking photo. Shark's fin, we all know about Hong Kong's lust for shark's fin. Again, material, an animal part which really has no taste and is easily substitutable. Despite all the efforts of all the charities to stop the shark's fin trade, we still process about 50% of the volume of the shark's fin trade coming into Asia. That's between 80 and 100 million. So really, simply, if you see anyone eating shark's fin, you should just tell them to stop, because it's just showing how stupid they are, because it really doesn't make any sense. Does it make any sense? No. Pangolins. Who knows what a pangolin is? It's the only other bipedal mammal, and they're being traded at a really unforgivable rate. 250,000 in the last 2 years being taken out of Africa and shipped into Asia and cooked for their meat and their scales. Again, because Some people in Asian traditional medicine, Chinese traditional medicine, believe that pangolins have medicinal value or are good for humans that consume them. They don't. And you know, the list goes on and on. I'm not going to go to too much doom and gloom because you might all start drinking before this is over. Plastics is an existential crisis. I believe one of the biggest crises that we face as a generation. So much plastic is now going into the ocean. I'm not quite sure how we're going to get it out. There's up to 240 million tons of plastic that's been put into the ocean so far. And we're not even talking about the microfibers that come off your clothes, your sportswear when you put it in the washing machine. That goes into the ecosystem, and everything from krill all the way out to the whales are consuming that. So when we eat fish, we're just eating our own plastic. This is one issue that I'm not quite sure how we're going to solve just yet, but this is why I'm here tonight. Because I wanted to get on a flight to London, but they asked me to come speak to you because you're the next generation who can make a difference. We're a bit old. Okay. The oceans, you know, we talk about the elephants, the rhinos. Really, if the elephants go extinct, humans will survive. If the rhinos go extinct, it's a tragedy, but the humans will survive. If corals go extinct, if seagrass goes extinct, we are in deep doo-doo. I can use a better word for that next time, but you get what I mean. Half the world's corals have disappeared already, and they reckon at the current rate of climate change, acidification of the oceans, as the temperature of the atmosphere rises, the oceans absorb that heat. The coral simply can't survive. Coral provides a home to thousands of species of fish, and they reckon up to 1 billion people depend on that food, that protein, as their main source of food. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen if the coral disappear, apart from all the undiscovered medicines that we could find within the coral. Insectageddon. Don't forget the small things. If we keep wiping out the bees and the small insects, we're going to have an even bigger problem on our hands. They reckon bees pollinate about 30% of our food crops. And because of the pesticides that we use, we're wiping out so many colonies of them that they just can't regenerate. They reckon that in Germany, there was a study in the PLOS ONE journal, 76% decline in 27 years. And I grew up in the UK, and I was very fortunate to have grown up in the countryside. When I grew up, in the summertime, you were driving down the road, and there were moths, there were butterflies, there were insects everywhere. Now, you'd be lucky to find a moth in a garden. And it's happened in my lifetime. So very, very scary. So what can we do? And this is going back to the unknown capacity. I didn't know what I could do when I was like, this is really pissing me off. What can I do? But you kind of work it out along the way. So as long as you sort of latch on to something that you want to fix, the solutions will come. In my case, I got to travel to some of the key areas in Africa where they're protecting the wildlife. They're trying to reintroduce orphans back into the wild. I was lucky enough to see that. You can volunteer for a charity. You can donate to charities doing great work on the ground in Africa. This is me here tagging turtles in the Solomon Islands with the Nature Conservancy. Feeding a baby rhino with milk, which was a lot of, you wouldn't believe how much milk they drink. A lot, like 6 of those bottles, 5 times a day. But the point is, I mean, that's all very cute. The point is we need more boots on the ground to stop the poachers from killing the animals. So you can help by either raising funds or raising awareness about that particular trade. I'm going to talk a little bit here about tech. Who's a techie here? Who's a computer scientist? Oh, I'm in the wrong faculty. But if you are in tech, you can also be a conservationist, because tech is actually going to be very useful to help conservationists, in this case, warn villagers in India about elephants that are going towards villages, to get them to get out the way so there's no human-wildlife conflict. Yes, they do still have Nokia phones, believe it or not. Here they're using drones to survey large tracts of land. Like I don't know, has anyone been here to Africa? Anyone here been to? The areas we're talking about, you can't imagine, because if you lived in Hong Kong all your life, space is probably, we live on a little dot, really, a little tiny island. But the amounts of areas they have to track to be able to save these animals are huge. Drones are going to play an important part in surveillance in the future. Seabin, two Australian guys, surfers, were like, hey, we're not going to put up with this plastic situation. What are we going to do? That's a terrible Australian accent. I apologize. But they went out, put a fundraiser on Indiegogo, and created Seabin, which is now shipping units. And we want to try and bring Seabin to Hong Kong because we have a huge plastic problem in the ocean. Essentially, all it is, it's a vacuum in a Seabin, in a bin, in a marina. And it just sucks in all the debris in the marinas, and then you empty it twice a day. Very simple process, simple to run and maintain. Why not? Why aren't these installed everywhere in Hong Kong? And if anyone has any ideas about installing them, have a hand up there.
What do you do with the seabird?
You hang them by the marina.
You just hang it?
You attach them to the side of the marina. It has to be in a marina or where there's concrete or wood, so you can fasten it to the actual the side, whatever they call it. But basically, you have to attach it so that the water doesn't move it too much. But it has to be in a marina, because if you put it out in the open ocean, the waves will obviously overwhelm it. You can look them up. I mean, there's been a lot of press about them. Tracking and big data, using QR codes to study ant colonies. The same principle for migrations of wildebeest, for migrations of birds. We can make tracking devices small enough now so that we can use that data to predict where they're going to go and help protect where they end up. With birds, for example, migratory birds, a lot of conservation initiatives protect where they are most of the time, but they don't protect the places where they go on their migration routes. So they get into trouble when they actually fly south or north for their migration routes. So big data, we need more engineers, data engineers, more computer coders, and so forth, because I'm pretty bad at coding. A guru recently said to me, Sadhguru, a very wise man, said that we're all responsible for everything, but it's only our actions that are limited. We can't do everything. We can't fix all these problems. We can respond to them internally and see how we feel about that. You have to decide which ones you're going to respond to and what you're going to do about it. But I think the key word here is that we are all responsible. I mean, you're responsible now because you know the issues. My particular project is Love is Wild. It's a traveling photo exhibition to raise awareness about illegal wildlife trade, about all the issues we've outlined so far, using local celebrities, taking them to the most remote places and photographing them. That's actually Mickey Yao with some elephants in Sumatra. We sell the photographs to raise funds for the charities, but also for the project. It's actually an omni-channel activation. From the TV show to the fine art exhibition, we had a street art campaign with some of the world's most famous artists in Sai Ying Pun, fundraising gala dinner, elephant marches in the street, lobbying the government, and now our tech piece, we are adding virtual reality and augmented reality, because 40% of people in Hong Kong live above the 14th floor, which means that for most people in Hong Kong, they would never have really had a proper experience with nature. How do we get people to experience the wonder, the majesty of the wild, the places that I've had the privilege of being to, in the confines of a gallery or in the confines of their home? It's no longer good enough just to give you a 2D image. So that's why we're using virtual reality and augmented reality. And we've partnered with many charities on the way to do this. And this is some of the photographs that I've taken on the way, on the journey. Yeah. This rhino is the last of 3 rhinos, the northern white rhinos, living on the planet. It's an extinct species. So that's why it's a very symbolic photograph, because she's basically praying to an extinct animal. Let's just hope that it doesn't go the same way for the other rhino species that are left. This is a celebrity diving with a whale shark in the Philippines, rather more scantily clad version with the cheetah. And I'm just going to play the trailer really quick. So that's the exhibition, and I would love to have you come down and see it one day. But now we're using virtual reality to really immerse yourself so that you feel that you're actually there. And that's really the power of virtual reality. I can't show you the virtual reality today. I can show you some of the augmented reality in your booklet. If you'd like to download the Authentic app after the lecture, you can download the app, trigger some of the AR from the images in the booklet. So please try that out. You need to have an iPhone. But really, what I've learned from this whole journey is that it sounds kind of hippie and modern, sort of new agey, but we really are all connected. We're not just connected here in the room, the air that we breathe. We're really connected with everything on this planet, including the wildlife that's 6,000 miles away in the middle of the African Sahara. So we really have to learn to understand that. As I mentioned, the virtual reality, the augmented reality, taking the education and immersion to another level. So now just one final video. We now have the traveling exhibition, which we hope to take across the world, starting, well, we've been now 3 times in Hong Kong, taking this across China, and then eventually to all the major capitals in the world. Okay, and you get the idea. We're going to have a mobile version of that, which is a traveling truck. We want to go to as many shopping malls as possible. Again, education using tech to really get the message home and give the people an experience that they can never otherwise have. One thing, just to finish off, because I've gone way over time, thank you for your patience. Have you ever seen the world from above? Well, most of us, when we go flying, you can see it from above. You know, I use drones a lot, and I've been to some of the most beautiful parts of the planet. And, you know, we're brought up to think that there was a heaven after life. Who believes in heaven after life? Quite a few people. Now, I don't want to be a heretic here, but maybe, just think, sometimes, maybe we are in heaven already, and we're trashing it. Do you want to go to a heaven where angels fly around in long robes anyway? So that's just my point, that we have inherited an incredible place to live on. You know, they talk about finding planets, exoplanets that are similar to Earth. The nearest habitable exoplanet, they reckon, is about 72 trillion miles away, about 12 light years. We're never going to get there. This is our home. This is all we have. So it's not just some conservationist responsibility to go out and do something. It's my responsibility to go out and do something, and it's your responsibility to do something. You can't blame anyone else from now on, because you now know what's happening. So I want you to take that away and dig deep and activate that unknown capacity, whatever it might be. And hopefully we will have a better, more equitable society within ourselves as the human species, but also with the animals and the ecosystems that we depend on and enjoy. Thank you very much.